It's just a phase. I wish I was praying for that. I was hoping every single day to wake up and be normal. Be like the other boys. Oh, kids are always like trying to figure themselves out. Oh, when I was younger, I was so much different from who I am now. The question that I have to people like that is like, at what point in your life did you identify as the other gender? This fits perfectly into today's stream. You think a man can have a vagina calling people stupid? Yeah, and? This was the tweet, by the way. It was like, Matt Walsh, my take on the Shiloh Hendrix story. I'm glad she raised $500,000. I hope she raises $500,000 more. Here's why. And I tweeted, I wish the great replacement theory was true because your white people are stupid as. What I obviously mean is that with like, these white people are so stupid, I would rather have the great replacement theory to be true. If this is where we're at when it comes to white people, you know, as a white person myself, we need to get replaced. In this response, you think a man can have a vagina calling people stupid? Yeah, because sex and gender is the same thing. Your phenotypical sex characteristics do not determine your gender identity. It is not that hard to understand. I made a tweet the other day. I was like, I wanted to talk about common phrases that trans people hear from cis people who think they know more about your identity than you. I haven't done this. I talked about like some talking points, but I don't really have like one video where I just like talk about like the basic phrases that you're going to hear when you come out as trans. Makes it also a bit more complicated than just your phenotype, because your brain also has a sex that might not match your phenotype. Like if you think about it, being trans is an intersex condition. Your brain has a different gender than your body. Obviously there is some in between. You know, there is some overlap. There are things happening. This is not just like black and white, because human beings are way more complex. I think you can safely assume that being trans is on the same level as like other intersex conditions. So basically your gender is the sex of your brain. Gender is like a social construct. This is something that is like, you know, in a lot of places being forced upon you based on your phenotypical sex characteristics, like gender roles, gender expectations, etc. But like your gender identity is like how you feel inside the social construct. And that is like just your brain. It is like separate from your body, which is like causing a lot of confusion, because a woman is an adult human female, but in reality it's like someone who identifies with that social construct, with that gender category of a female, which is making things a little bit more complicated for the average mind. And then they are freaking out because like, oh, you're changing definitions to suit your ideology. And it's like, no, this is just like the observation of society. Gender identity and gender are slightly different. It's your personal identity of this social construct. Yeah, gender identity is basically like the gender of your brain, and it doesn't have to match your phenotype. And the problem is like, if your gender identity and that phenotype doesn't match, then it's going to cause a lot of issues. But yeah, a man can have a vagina. That is accurate. If you're a penis haver and I cut it off, doesn't change your gender identity. You can still identify as a man. That is also like this argument. It's like, oh, you think if a man cuts off their pee-pee, they're a woman. And it's like, nope. Sometimes people just do things to affirm their gender identity, but that gender identity is not going to change afterwards. The act of changing your physical characteristics to match your gender identity is not what determines your gender identity, but you do it because there's a mismatch, because you're dysphoric about certain things. My dad thinks it's mental illness after I tried explaining how it's different from biological sex. Yeah, I mean, like, some people just don't want to listen to like actual science. They are like, oh, man equals XY, woman equals XX, anything in between doesn't exist. Any alteration, that's just an exception. Oh, you're telling me they're XY women? Nonsense. And then you tell them about what is it, Swire syndrome, where the SRY gene is missing, or like it's not activating, and thus the gonads are not dropping, they're not going from ovaries to testes. We all have like the same components. Your balls are not that much different from the ovaries. Your dick It's not that much different from a vagina, from the components. That's why we can do what we do so effectively. You know, that's why HRT can like change your physical attributes. And we know that it's helpful. We know that like changing the body is so much easier than changing someone's brain. And I mean, like, all these people, they never have like issues with doctors deciding if an intersex baby with ambiguous genitalia, like what gender they should have. It's just kind of toxic because it pushes the idea that whatever you're picking, you know, this coin flip, whatever you're deciding is like the best decision, because they think based on your phenotype, you're now being socialized in a certain way, and that socialization is never going to cause any issues. Like, they don't even understand like that is not true. Sometimes intersex babies with ambiguous genitalia are unlucky, and they are being forced into something that doesn't match their gender identity, and it's going to cause a lot of issues, and then they're being gaslit and traumatized in certain ways. They're being pushed into something, into irreversible changes, into life-altering decisions. But like, if I come along and I try to take this concept and I apply it to trans people, they're just like, oh, you're just mentally ill. Oh, you should just get into conversion therapy. Oh, you just need to like man up. You just need someone to teach you how to be a real man, how to, you know. They do not have the capability to apply logic from one thing and expand it onto trans issues. And that is what's so frustrating about these things. All these phrases like, you're just a feminine man. It's like, no, I am not a man. That is the issue. I tried doing feminine things as a man, and it always felt wrong. And it wasn't because like I was in a homophobic environment. It's like, no, I did something and it didn't match my body. When I was hanging around other girls my age back in the day, I always felt uncomfortable because I was hanging out with them as a boy, not just a girl hanging out with other girls. It caused a lot of distress for me. That is what like caused me to isolate and what caused me to be depressed. I wish I was just a feminine man. I wish I was just gay. That would have been so much easier than to transition. You are gay? I mean, I'm pansexual. I was pansexual before that. I was just like not able to have like any form of intimacy or relationship because I couldn't imagine myself being a man dating other people. And this is not some like turning the people who have internalized homophobia into straight people so they can, no. Being a cis white gay man would have been so much easier than being a trans woman. Because being a woman is more difficult and being trans is more difficult. The things that I had to do, taking HRT, etc., it helped me fix this distress that I had that came from a mismatch between my gender identity and my body's sex, my physical attributes. That is how I know that I'm not a man. And I'm not even that particularly feminine. I enjoy doing feminine things. I also enjoy doing masculine things. These are things that society deems to be feminine. These are things that society deems to be masculine. It is just a social construct, an arbitrary thing. It would have been so much easier for me to just like fully detach myself from it and be like, I just do whatever I feel like doing. But the problem is like I had to transition in order to allow myself to do feminine and masculine things, because it is really problematic if you do not feel comfortable in your own skin because there are changes happening to your body and doing certain things just looks wrong. Nowadays, I can wear a skirt. I can feel comfortable wearing a skirt, mainly because of body fat redistribution. I have wider hips. I like my legs. I have nice thighs. Not gonna lie. Before that, I couldn't. I couldn't do certain things. I couldn't do feminine things because I wasn't a man. Hey everyone, editing now here. I didn't really phrase this part right, so I'm trying to like clarify what I mean. I'm basically trying to say that like I enjoy doing masculine and feminine things, but I enjoy doing these things as a woman because it matches my gender identity. Before, I couldn't do these things because as a man, it looked looked wrong to me because it didn't align with my gender identity. I hope that kind of clarifies that part. Make sure to drop a like, post a comment, and subscribe, and help me get to 50,000 subscribers. Yes, I'm still working on the 10,000 subscriber special, but we can still reach the next milestone. Anyways, enjoy the video. Bye-bye. Like being non-binary, but it makes things very complicated with my family, and I would be equally happy if I were cis. I am who I am, though. Yeah, like, you can't really change that. You know, this is not something that you can just, like, brush over. Are you sure you're not gay? Basically a similar thing with, like, feminine, because they attribute being gay as something feminine. It's just a phase. I wish I was praying for that. I was hoping every single day to wake up and be normal. Be like the other boys. Stop wanting to end my life because I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. They can't relate to you. They don't know how you feel inside. They do not experience the same things. My mom, for example, was like, oh, you know, when I was younger, I was playing with the boys. Sure, but it's like a little bit different. Like, obviously, if you're a woman, if you're a man, you don't fit all the check boxes that come with the label man or woman. You know, for example, women wear dresses, women like pink, women play with dolls, things like that. That is what, like, a capitalistic society teaches what girls like. But that is not always the case. Some girls play with Lego. Some girls go outside and play football or whatnot. That happens. But do you do it as a girl, or do you want to be one of the boys? Do you want to do it as a boy, or are you fine with doing things that are considered for boys as a girl? I feel like that's different. Obviously, there's also like a lot of social stigma that's coming with it. So it's like, oh, you know, your parents don't allow you to do the things that you like because you are born in a certain way. That can cause a lot of issues. You know, let kids be kids, unless the kid wants to do something they actually enjoy doing that doesn't fit into your ignorant worldview. That happens. Of course. But like, I feel like that is something that would be addressed in the early stages when, you know, children, teens, etc. talk to a therapist. That is like the upper layer of like gender dysphoria. You're not allowed to do certain things because your phenotypical sex characteristics determine what you should like, what you should enjoy doing. That is problematic. That is why I feel like society would benefit from getting rid of like this social construct of gender. However, I still believe that even if we get rid of the gender categories, trans people will still exist. There will still be people who are going to take HRT and do cross-sex hormone treatment. I think that the whole masculine and feminine categorization is just too reductionist and harmful. People aren't these simplistic NPCs, but are multidimensional and complex. The thing is, like, it teaches children their place. It teaches girls their place. That is what it is. It's just about control. Obviously, corporations are, like, taking advantage of that and, like, specifically catering certain things for a specific demographic to take advantage from the average household, which has a boy and a girl. Because, like, if you tell the girls that it's okay to play with action figures, or it's okay for boys to play with dolls, even if it's literally like the same thing, it's just marketed differently, they are going to lose out on revenue. Some girls are tomboys, yeah, and that's totally fine, but they're still girls. It is okay to enjoy doing masculine things, but like the question is like, are you still secure in your gender identity? Your gender expression might change. That is what like a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh, kids are always like trying to figure themselves out. Oh, kids never really know what is going on. Oh, when I was younger, I was so much different from who I am now. The question that I have to people like that is like, at what point in your life did you identify as the other gender? If you're a woman, at what point in your life did you identify as a boy? And for what reasons did you identify as a boy if you did? Did you actually grow out of dysphoria if you had that? And this doesn't make sense for a lot of people, because a lot of people are like, well, you know, back then I tried doing certain things. I cut my hair short, but I was still a girl. It's like, yeah, that's like the idea behind it. Because like I can tell you back then, I tried doing certain things, but I was like, I don't feel like a boy. I don't enjoy doing certain things because I don't resonate with, you know, my body, because it's a boy's body and I don't like that. I don't know. Does that make sense? The thing is that people won't and will never fit into these neat little boxes. I prefer feminine things and would prefer to be seen as feminine, but I also have a lot of masculine traits. I like to do things that are considered masculine. But that is your gender expression. Obviously, society genders certain things unnecessarily, you know, pushing the idea that pink is for girls, pink is something feminine, blue is masculine. This is also something that like changes with time. You go back a couple of decades, this is going to be flipped. Pink is going to be masculine 100 years ago. But like, it doesn't change your gender identity. Of course, if you're gender fluid, then you're going to have like different experiences, because then your gender identity might fluctuate, which can also cause other issues, especially if you have like dysphoria. You know, sometimes you're not dysphoric about certain things, other times you're really dysphoric about certain things. That is why, you know, it's just a phase. It's like you're not going to grow out of it. This lie of like desisting, you know, oh, trans people just stop being trans, it has been debunked. I talked about this like numerous times, and I feel like it's really important for kids who are questioning their gender identity or like gender in general to have the education and healthcare to like work with experts, because healthcare doesn't mean you're going to get, you know, surgery at 12 years old. No, you're going to work with pediatricians and you're going to talk to therapists, multiple psychologists, etc. Like, that is healthcare. I don't think enough people understand that gender dysphoria comes primarily from a mismatch between your brain sex and phenotype. I mean, it's not just your phenotype. There are a lot of people who are dysphoric about certain things, but not necessarily like their phenotype. A lot of trans women struggle with broad shoulders, for example. That is something that you can be dysphoric about. Cis women struggle with that too. Cis women have these issues too. I feel like if we would live in a world where certain bone structures weren't like gendered, then a lot of people wouldn't have dysphoria about certain things. But it's like, oh, you like certain outfits, you like certain shoes, and it's like, well, your feet are too big. You have masculine feet. You have men's feet, so you're not able to wear these cute shoes. That can cause a lot of dysphoria. They can make dysphoria worse. And I feel like that is an issue that also hurts a lot of cis women. But we never talk about that. It's like, oh, just wear a dress. You don't need hormones. It's like, for me personally, I did, because the body fat redistribution helped me a lot to make dresses look better. I'm still not at a point where I'm like comfortably able to like wear them. I mostly wear like oversized shirts. Not really at a point where I feel gender euphoria from putting on a dress. But like, you know, I'm moving towards it. And HRT helped me a lot. Body hair, like facial hair. Facial hair is awful. But that's also because like, you know, society pushes the idea that women don't have facial hair, which is like not true. There are a lot of 60-year-old cis women who have thicker facial hair than a lot of men. I mean, they also push the idea that like cis women don't have body hair. It's like, actually, your beauty standards, what you consider what women look like, is basically what a bunch of cis straight guys wanted women to look like. It is just controlling women's bodies by pushing these like fashion, like the beauty industry, etc. Things that you feel dysphoric about, oftentimes, unless it's like actually your phenotypical sex, a lot of things that you feel dysphoric about, especially like as a trans woman, is because you compare yourself to the standard that is set for women in order to control women, you know, beauty expectations. So like the reason why you feel uncomfortable with your broad shoulders, the reason why you feel uncomfortable with body hair, is because you've been taught from a really young age what do women have to look like. And any deviation is causing distress. So I feel like, you know, obviously there will be some people who would still take HRT, but there are a lot of sources of like distress happening because gender as a whole is being controlled by some rich cis white men. But it's like, you compare yourself to your surrounding, you compare yourself to cis women, and that's also like what causes a lot of like gender envy, etc. It makes you feel invalid. Like, it pushes this weird imposter syndrome where you're like, I'm not putting in enough effort to be considered a woman by society because I don't match the beauty expectations, etc. Like, I don't meet the standards that my surrounding has. And I feel like that's why a lot of like trans people rarely befriend cis people of the same gender identity. I love hanging around my cis girlfriends, but like, it does make me feel more insecure than being around trans women. It kind of sucks because like a lot of them are like really inclusive and extremely supportive, etc. But it makes me feel like I'm not there yet. I haven't earned that yet. And I feel like that also comes from, I guess, like socialization and when you started transitioning. So it's just going to come with time. Just something where you need to develop like some self-confidence and self-esteem, etc. But like, it does feel different. You will never pass. You shall not pass. It's like this idea that men and women are so different that you will never reach the other side. But in reality, there are a lot of guys with long hair who are getting misgendered on the basis that they have long hair. It is way easier to pass than a lot of people make it out to be. And I think it comes from the fact that you are going through this weird, awkward, in between transitioning stage. Especially if you're on Twitter, you're just a trans woman living her life, doing things, and you have people posting in the comments pictures of the stereotypical man in dresses. And like, when I go back, when I look at my transitioning timeline, I looked a lot different because I was in this weird in-between stage and I thought I would never reach the other side. But like, hey, HRT helped a lot. Adjusting my gender expression a little bit, being more comfortable with like dressing more femininely and presenting more femininely, that helped a lot. That gets me gendered correctly more often. Obviously, I still have issues with voice. So having phone calls is always like kind of stressful because people don't see you visually. And they're just like placing your voice somewhere, and it's always awkward, especially on the phone where you lose so many frequencies. Like, obviously you can be like, passing is not a requirement, but it is really beneficial for you to feel safe to do certain things. It's going to help you with feeling more secure in your gender identity. So like, I feel like just downplaying it, brushing over it is not actually a good thing. That's one of like the biggest things. Is like, you're going to go through an awkward transitioning stage. Everybody has been through that. Obviously, for some people, it's going to take longer, or it's not going to take as much time. It just kind of depends on where you're at in life. It just kind of sucks that in a lot of instances, hormones is the biggest like roadblock. You know, if you're not able to get on hormones, you're not going to get a lot of changes that help other trans people pass. Obviously, not every trans person wants to be in hormones, but I'm just speaking from my experience. Nobody will love you. That is like something that has been ingrained into me with like awful representation that trans people had when it comes to like, you know, sitcoms. There are a lot of people out there who do not mind trans people. Obviously, you're going to meet a lot of like chasers. That is like something you need to look out for, you know, when people get excited when you tell them that you're trans. Also, like, this is a side note, like, just because someone tells you that they are trans, it doesn't mean that they are like your trans encyclopedia. It doesn't give you permission to ask incredibly invasive questions. Also, like, not every trans person knows everything about trans topics. Like the stuff that I experienced on Valorant. You're falling for big pharma. That's also like a huge thing. It's like, oh, you're just a science experiment. Are menopausal women also falling for big pharma because they take estrogen? Their hormonal levels are out of balance, so they need HRT in order to fix that. Are they falling for big pharma? How much money, like realistically speaking, does like 1% of the population generate when they literally just access the things that like 50% of the population needs anyways? Are like diabetics falling for big pharma because they have to take insulin? Am I falling for big pharma because I have issues with my thyroid and I need to take medication for that? Or is it only falling for big pharma when it's trans people getting gender affirming care? Be a science experiment as well if I receive free cyberware like in Cyberpunk. Why do we not have exotics? Why is that not a thing? Why do we not have like actual exotics in this world? Where are my animal like physical form alterations? Where's my biosculpting? Where are my bioexotics? I want to have a foxtail. Elon Musk promised us cat girls. Where are they? I'm literally going to offer my body if you can like cybernetically enhance me and give me a tail. You would offer your body to Elon Musk? If I could come out as a cat girl or fox girl, I would. I want to disassociate from the human race. Give me cat ears. Real humans has a tail. Also humans, we need bigger tail. Most humans don't have a tail because the gene that we have is like inactive. Like the gene that gives you tails is like inactive by default. But like, I don't want to have a monkey tail. That is the issue. I don't want to have a monkey tail. I don't want to be bioengineered to just end up having a monkey tail. They are so useful. Oh, you can use them as like an additional arms. Like, yeah, but like, I want a big fluffy tail that is wagging when someone calls me a good girl. I am not a bottom, but like, I need that.